So, yeah, we're back. I know some people left. It's cool. It says a live video is ended. You started a new one. Oh, okay. So we're on a new.
I don't stream like it is.
Oh, I was saying stream it since people were watching. Oh, it's okay. We'll just post it.
Yeah, I've got them on YouTube.
Oh, okay. I ain't know that. I got to put them up. My bad. So.
I had done I was going to do it for IGTV.
So this is real ATS, y'all. Y'all hearing the whole conversation.
Yeah, you got to make it authentic. So, I mean, but do you understand what I was saying with today's, like, so I want to get back to today's ignorance. I just want to go back.
This is how hard it was bothering him, y'all. Just want y'all to see this. Go ahead.
But it's just like, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a real situation.
Yeah, because like when the whole thing, when we was talking about the real estate developers, like because of racism, that's why black communities are undervalued by 45% with their homes and their housing. So because of racism is why we can't make investments and why we weren't into the whole property game. Like we couldn't get mortgages. We couldn't get loans. Like how do you just say it's not a company's responsibility just because they are a privately owned company? Right. Like I just don't get that.
No. To your point, that's where the humanity comes in at, right? But then when you think about how black people have been positioned in the media to look less than human, there becomes that opportunity to then feel as if you don't have to do it because we're 3/5, right? That was corrected, but it was in there. So there's still that legacy of,
the hate.
We're not fully human, which is far from the truth. Original humans. That's all I gotta say.
The superior humans. I mean, people are literally taken from our genes, and people are taken from what we've done. Then for you to anyway. So what I wanted to say was somebody to learn. I mean, so I don't understand paying somebody to learn not to be racist. First of all, why you got to give them paid holidays for them to take this course? Like they don't have enough time on the weekend or when they off to do this on their own because you're now getting paid to care about society, which to me just proves another point of it's not really in their natural heart to do it. So you can't force somebody to be something they're not.
Right. They're just going to be in that class, probably on Instagram or la, spacing out. And it just sounds like want.
So this is the things I said. I typed it, but I want to say it because I want people to hear me say it. I think they should try 25 to 100 million for black fashion designers that are lowballed and being blackballed with the lack of access to material and placement sales. Mm-hmm. They should invest into their brands while taking no stock or ownership into those companies. Give them access to the finest materials. Require that all Gucci employees and fashion leads take a diversity class taught by ACLU or the NAACP, not just somebody they hire and bring into the comfort of their shop. Show constant support by speaking out on issues of oppression to the black community. Mm-hmm. Diversify your staff, not only in the higher ups and in your C-suites, which we know ain't never going to happen, but diversify them in the stores so people are not being following and feel uncomfortable in the stores. Give Dapper Dan his own division where he maintains 75% of all profits to help other fashion designers move forward, where he then invests 50% of his profit. Give him a loyalty check for every year you ban him from making clothes when he is the reason why you had the amazing crossover in the real trendsetters. Place a Gucci store in blighted neighborhoods while allowing up-and-coming designers to do pop-ups and fashion shows in your store. Then develop community programs in a nearby facility that you pay for in the top 10 cities that you earn income from. Next to it should be a health and wellness, including a healthy food option. Now, if you're going to do that to make a change, reinvest your profit from those select stores to repurchase property and land to help entrepreneurs of color. Then that's when it's Gucci.
Right. And you're hitting on the point of actually doing something and not just throwing money at it.
Right.
Like actually implement something. And we talked about it a little bit last week when we were talking about presidential candidates and the whole concept of like reparations and how you have people who are talking about actually how to take that money and affect change and not just giving people checks. Like that's the whole thing. Like how can we implement systems and actual tangible tactics that can then really affect people for generations?
I mean, I'm angry to the point that I want Gucci Man to change his name. Like, because you're constantly promoting them. And for anybody that said that it was not their responsibility or no company is responsible for this or whatever, You need to go look up the story of the young students in the Bronx that held a lockout and the demands they required for the school for them to end the lockout at their school. We have 14 to 18-year-old students that have better common sense of the demands to address an issue than adults, rich adults. And now, even common sense peers of mine, you should go look at what these kids put together. I know you watch sports, most sure with Kevin, but
Yeah.
what do you think about the trade with Odell Beckham Jr. as well as Antonio Brown?
So I honestly I haven't paid that much attention to it. I heard about it. And I just think it's interesting. I know that there was a lot of commentary around it, but you're going to have to catch me up because I really haven't paid that much attention
Oh,
to
no,
it.
I mean, to me, the Giants are saying they're doing it to rebuild, which is cool. But I just think about two outspoken brothers being pushed out of conservative
Major.
areas. That's all I can see. I see.
And out of major teams.
Right,
kinda.
off of major teams,
Yeah.
and almost like they're too talented not to be playing, but they're too outspoken to not be silenced to some degree. And like when I saw this and when I'm seeing all the commentary, and I don't know if it's because we have a show now and because now I look at almost everything different because
Right.
it's like, is that content for the show? Do I need to address this?
Yeah.
And now I understand people that have to do this every day. It could be stressful. I understand why they drink, but like,
We're not promoting that.
yes, actually, we are.
Right.
Timeline Brewery,
As I have a half glass.
always on time.
Listen.
So I'm
It's
just
5
wondering,
o'clock somewhere.
or how much are they going to silence people? And then speaking of silence, it was the other thing was just it's not by chance but circumstance. Talking about the number of young men in the Ferguson protests that have died, and four of them have been ruled suicides, and I just can't.
Don't buy it.
I can't buy that.
Don't buy it.
I don't see it as suicides at all. I just think this is rough. I mean, McCarroll of Columbus, Ohio, supposedly shot himself in February outside of the front door of Ohio State House. And he has been active in Ferguson. Okay, if he shot himself outside of the Ohio State House, I'm going to assume there's cameras. Show us the camera footage of him actually shooting himself. That's Mr. Crawford fatally shot himself after telling acquaintances he had been distraught over personal issues. And a photo of Crawford firing tear gas canister back at police during the Ferguson protest. That was the large photo. That was the big one. So I'm not buying that either. Then October 24th, Mr. Jones, and I'm calling them by just their last name because that's the respect of half of these young men for what they did.
Yeah.
Was found hanging from a tree in the yard of his North St. Louis County home.
That's called lynching.
Yes.
That's not.
That's a hate crime. Accountability, racism. And as the mother said, they lynched my baby, but his death was also ruled a suicide. And Mr. Masari was frequently live streamed during a whole demonstration, was found unresponsive on a bus in November and couldn't be revived. And they're saying that he overdosed on fentanyl. I mean, to me, this sounds like the making of a movie, and I would call the movie The Silence of Freedom.
Completely agree. And as you were sort of talking about each one of their situations, I immediately had visions of Ida B. Wells, right? And the role that she played at a time when lynching was extremely, it was so heavy. And the fact that we're back at that place and now the same things are happening, right? It's almost like we are in a crazy loop, and things are just sort of circling back around. And because it's sort of disguised as something else, we're not fully alert. You have this whole idea of being woke, but how really woke are we? Because are we speaking out enough? Are we truly saying what needs to be said? Are we really sort of owning the space that we're in and saying no, this is not going to happen anymore?
Honestly, I feel every time we do this show, when we start addressing real issues, I feel like we're taking a chance. I feel like I'm taking a chance on my brand, and I feel like I might be limiting my client appeals if somebody actually sat down and watched this, if they had to voice their true opinion. Is that a fire alarm?
Look, targeted. But yeah, while we investigate what's happening with that beeping sound. No, so I think that going back to what we've talked about before, especially with the start of the season, the importance of journalism and the importance of really talking about the facts and the importance of having different perspectives, because that's the role that she played. She focused on a lot of the lynching cases and sharing information that was not being covered otherwise. She used her platform and her paper to really just be that space for us. And we need those outlets. We need that conversation. And going back to the whole thing with the NFL, you have those two players who almost have been like demoted in their job. Like, you're going to go over there. You going from your office to like the mailroom.
Pack
like
up your
you
toys and
tried
go
it.
somewhere else.
Yeah, you tried it. You tried it. And I think one of my favorite players is Marshawn Lynch, because I just love how he
He stood, yeah, he was like,
pimped the
damn
system.
this, yeah.
He was like, I'm going to do what I need to do, and I'm out.
Right.
Thank you for funding my true dreams. And I'm buying back the block.
I mean, the only thing I could be excited for the NFL is any consideration that I've heard that the Dolphins might take on Kaepernick. Other than that, like, I'm so detached from the whole situation. But I will tell you personally, besides the fact of what we do inside of our company, I'm consistently inspired to continue what we're doing and push it a step further, because that's what LeBron James has been doing the last.
And I was going to say, and how he's really pimping the game. And people hate, how he sort of like jumps from team to team. But when you look at his business mindset and why he's doing what he's doing,
everything is strategic,
and not allowing the league to dictate how he moves within the system. That's huge.
Yeah.
Like, that's really taking ownership of your position, knowing how to leverage your position, and then making the moves that you need to see for yourself
to make what's best for you.
Exactly.
Another thing though,
and not being an employee. Sorry, I had to say that. Like,
I agree. Be an owner.
Right.
Own something. I mean, not even that. Be an owner, and he put his boys on. He brought his boys with him, got them additional education and master degrees.
Right.
All his homeboys running his companies, and he said, I was watching The Shop, and when I was watching The Shop, he was talking about how sometimes he wondered, is he supposed to be here? Was he meant to be here? Because I guess I think he might have been talking about his basketball team, or he might have just been talking about 10 friends, but like 5 of his friends are with him and successful. The other 5 are dead. And he was like, what kept him from going to one side or the other?
Right.
And like, because a lot of people don't remember, LeBron James is still somebody's son. He's still a young man. We're older than him. Like,
yeah.
I really wished I could have just reached through the TV and said, because you chose to go that route.
Right.
You chose and you focused with your determination.
There are consequences for every decision and every action.
Speaking of decision and actions, the last thing we need to talk about, because it's going to matter for future income and one of our business investments, spring break in Miami.
Yeah.
People are just saying it's told into a Turner Ratchet Fest. I don't think spring break now is any different than the garbage I used to see at Panama City in 1993. The only difference is we have a platform that allows you to upload content without anybody's consent.
Yep.
Like, I've seen white girls fighting and pulling each other's hair, and I've seen white boys throwing beer bottles and beating each other up, and faces just leaking because they done got hit on the head with a Coors Light bottle or something like that. Like, I've seen the worst of it right there in Panama City. It just doesn't get promoted or advertised the same.
Right.
And only thing they do is say they figure out a way to not arrest them. They figure out a way to detain them and get fine money from them, but almost to make sure they make it home by the time spring break is over. So I will admit that when I was watching this, it made my head hurt and my heart cringe, especially when the young man punched the girl in the face and knocked her out. But she hit him. I mean, as a woman, don't hit a man if you don't want to fight a man. Once you cross that line of being a woman, you might get treated like a man. Old country saying. She shouldn't have hit him. But I lived in Panama City, and there was nothing savory about the moments that I saw in Panama City. It was just as bad. The part that I'm worried about is, I know from some inside sources and some opportunities, they were talking about putting together a committee and doing this whole Welcome to Miami, because Miami has been taking such a hit with people not coming in the summertime and people not coming during Memorial Day weekend. They were going to try to put together this whole committee to try to get black people pretty much to come back to Miami. I'm wondering if this now will it halter the need of the money, or what are you going to do to regulate it? Because it wasn't like I seen 200 videos. Mm-hmm. It was just 4 of them that went viral. I've seen worse in Panama City. So I'm just wondering, how do you think we deal with the brand of building Miami?
So
More so South Beach specifically.
Right. So I have especially since, so I will say this. So Memorial Day weekend, especially when we were in college, was completely different. You actually used to see like celebrities on Ocean
Puffy
Drive.
Used to be driving.
Fat Joe. Yeah. It was a completely different situation, and it was not what it kind of morphed into later. And even though I was not a fan of what it kind of morphed into later, I will still sit there and tell people, do not come to South Beach Memorial Day weekend because they don't want your money. They will shut down and do everything else. So you're coming to Miami looking for an experience, to South Beach, not to do that whole South Beach Miami thing because it's 2 different things.
2 different worlds.
Yeah, but people were kind of coming and then being treated differently, being sort of tracked differently. And you have to sort of pay attention to that. And you don't need to give your money to people who don't want it. So until the city gets it together and there's a different relationship with the quote unquote urban population, I would stay away. Like, I wouldn't go back.
I'd just say go to Atlanta and bring back Freaknik.
Listen, I was sad Freaknik was over when I was in school.
I was. By the time I went like that last year when they were trying to decide if they were going to do it or not do it. And it was on like 10 people that showed up with their cameras. So I missed the years where it was like off the chain.
Yeah.
Fun. But the biggest thing is, if there was cameras, it was VHS and only certain people saw what happened.
There was no viral.
Otherwise, it was more like Vegas. What happened in Atlanta stayed in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those people we talking about, they y'all mamas and
Exactly.
they running businesses and everything else right now.
You just don't know what they did at Freaknik. But yeah, that's what I think. I think that there needs to be a different relationship. And then also too, you have to sort of know that there's a time and a place from a person perspective. Like, don't come down here with the ratchetness. Like, stop.
Also, maybe just a different board of advisors of what kind of things to put together to attract certain kind of people.
Yeah.
Like, I don't always believe you have to outprice people, but I definitely believe you can outclass people. As bad as they sound, if certain things are structured a certain way, it's going to be a certain audience that just won't have the appeal to show up. They'll be like, nah, I'm good.
Right. And I do believe that there is some sort of committee, and this may be sort of tied, but I believe the NAACP is actually working with the city of Miami Beach for Memorial Day weekend and doing some stuff.
I don't know if the NAACP to me is business minded enough to be conscious of everything that needs to happen to make it successful. That's just my personal opinion. I mean, NAACP has barely changed this dialogue and platform from their original 1960-something.
Well, I think the local chapter from when we had the president on last season, it was a little bit of a different dialogue. He definitely comes from a different place, just from what we saw,
right, than
what the sort of traditional NAACP model is.
Sourced a certain way, spoken a certain way, but is it being activated the same way it's sourced and spoken?
Time will tell. Well,
y'all, this was after the show. We don't really have too much, so this will be put up on our YouTube page and also maybe stream live somewhere and add it to an additional segment of our podcast, which our podcast is now featured on FeedBurner, SoundCloud, as well as iTunes. You can find it there.
Yep.
All right. Peace.